So welcome back to the adventure. We're going to start a little video series here that's going to talk about what you need to consider and kind of how to build a tiny house. Right now in the series, we've got welding, plumbing, carpentry, electrical, and some things to consider when you're getting started to build something like this. If you don't really know what you're doing, or if you just want to do a conversion like a van conversion or something like that, here's some things and tools to consider that you might need. So far that's our list. So if there's anything I'm missing or anything specific that you want me to cover, let me know, and if I know how to cover it, I will. But we're gonna get this started. The first video was gonna be about welding, but I'm on a couple of Facebook groups, and one of the people on there said that they'd like a video on carpentry, and so I told them, yeah, for sure, I'll do that one first instead of welding. So carpentry this week, next week will be welding, and then we're going to keep going down the list until we run out of stuff on this little video series. So we're just going to jump right in. Alright, so very first thing on that list, a saw. Right? You got to be able to cut the material that you're going to be using in your carpentry project. Next thing on that list is a tape measure, right? Where are you gonna cut? You got to know where to cut it. So obviously, tape measure. My third thing on that list is probably the most important. No, the tape measure is more important, but this is also very important, a square. Square keeps you obviously square. So if you don't have a square, there are other ways to make sure your corners are at 90 degrees. But this is my favorite tool for making things really quick and easy. It's called a speed square, right? You got a 90 degree angle here, you got a 45 degree angle here, as well as some measurements. So if you set this, you can angle it and then read on this what the measurement is to get certain angles. But this goes in your back pocket. This stays with you always when you're doing any kind of carpentry projects. And then the last things on the list, which are trip people up, that's why I left it for last, to kind of explain it a little bit more. You've got a driver and a drill. Ooh. Now the difference between those, the drill and the driver, the drill makes a hole and the driver fills the hole. And it's kind of the way that they're built. One's the impact. A lot of people will call both of them drills. Technically, yeah, they are kind of both drills. Impact drill, but I call it an impact driver. And then the other one's a drill. This one has a hammer function, so we can call it the hammer drill. But it's one drill makes a hole and the other one fills it. Now the drill, let me flip this back around. Alright, so now this is a drill, right? The way that it's set up, it can be used to fill holes as well. And actually it's very good with that, with filling holes. It's got a clutch up here. This clutch, the looser you make it, the less resistance that it needs to stop spinning this bit. I'll show you guys that. And the more you twist this clutch, the more resistance is needed to stop spinning the actual bit. And you go all the way, it goes to a hammer function, which is good for drilling holes in masonry. And then you've got a drill function, which gives you all the torque of the actual drill. I do not recommend driving fasteners with the drill portion of this tool. This specific one comes with the handle because it generates that much torque. If you're sitting there drilling along and it stops, it will if you're sit there drilling along, right, and then drill gets stopped suddenly, it'll twist your wrist because you're hanging on tight and you're drilling. It will actually it torques on people's wrists, and there's been people to break their wrists. Also, this has a lot of force behind it. and it's been known to spin around out of somebody's hand and hit themselves in the face, knock them out. So I don't recommend drilling, or I don't recommend driving with a drill on the drill setting. Now, if you move the clutch down to a really light setting, that's what it's for. It allows you to drive things and stop at a certain pressure. It's not measured or anything, it's just a feeling. It helps you to not to drive through an object, because this will drive a screw straight through a wood and completely destroy your project. Or it has the option to not do that. It's all about how you set it up. Alright, so this is the clutch on the weakest setting. See? It stops on its own. I'm still holding the trigger. Okay, that's the weakest setting. Now I'm going to engage the drill. And I'm going to set this up. Set this up to where you guys can see, and I can hold everything with one hand. Or with two hands, I should say. This is the drill section. It'll go straight through into your material. That's pretty deep in there. That's very deep in there. And this was a thinner material, it goes straight through it. Now this is a driver, an impact driver. And what that means is when this bit is spinning, it's spinning pretty fast. When this bit stops, there's a little hammer in here that spins around and hits on the end of the bit to drive it a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And it's like smacking the end of it over and over with a hammer, and you can hear that clicking happen. That motion doesn't put a whole lot of torque on your wrist, so you can end up putting lots of force on a fastener very easily and not feel any torque really in the grip or in your wrist. Also, it doesn't make very good for drilling holes, because when you start getting that force like that, if you've got a long bit that has like a spade bit, you'll destroy that bit, because the driver can put more torque than your hand can. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, if you're getting that all the way, but I'll try and give you an example if I can find one without destroying my a bit that I have, because the only reason I know that it will destroy a bit is because I've done it before. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Don't do it that. Now you can drill holes with this, and I try not to go any bigger than a 1/2 inch. If I'm going to drill holes with my impact, which sometimes if I'm working on something, this is the closest tool, and I'm just going to throw something in there and just use that. And yeah, like I said, you can drill holes. I try not to go bigger than a 1/2 inch, and I try not to use my impact for drilling holes in metal, just because it's annoying because of the impacting noise, and two, it just destroys your bits. It really destroys your bits. And this is an impact. A lot easier to get it flush, a lot more control. This will drive it through your material too, but since it has that impact and that click, there's no torque on my wrist. So I can sit here and drive this all the way through with no torque on my wrist. Same exact thing, just as deep, but I don't have to hold it and torque my wrist. That's why this is so much easier to drive with. Now, one thing to note is that you'll notice that all of my tools that are on this table, they're all red, except for the speed square, right? So with that being said, this is like $300. This is like $300. Well, it was when I bought it. I don't know what it is now. It might be $300 for a kit for the both of them. Tape measure is pretty cheap, but that's like 30-40 bucks. And this I got at a pawn shop, but brand new, this is like 300 bucks. So if you're to buy each one of these separate, we're talking 369, right? You're almost $1,000 with just these tools right here. Now you don't have to go out and buy the best of the best. This is not the best of the best. I've been doing this for a long time, and I like Milwaukee. I like how many tools they have in their arsenal. I like how the company is set up, and I like the quality of tools they're putting out and continue to put out. So I'm probably going to stick with Milwaukee. And it's one of those things that once you get one, right? Yeah, the tools are expensive, but these battery packs are 180 bucks a piece. So if I've got 6 batteries, even if I only have these 3 power tools, I'm not buying another brand drill, because if I go on a job or if I'm need to cut a lot of wood that day, I can use a bunch of Milwaukee batteries, right, and run on my saw. So now that builds the arsenal of you have to get the another Milwaukee this, another Milwaukee that. So when you go to pick your tool brand, keep in mind, what are you going to do with that tool brand, right? Are you just somebody who is going to build one project and never touch any other tools again? If you're going to build a tiny house, I can tell you right now that is not the case. You're going to be building on that tiny house forever. Even when you think you're done and you haven't picked up a wrench in 6 or 7 months, you're going to figure out something else that you want to change, and you're going to pick up your wrench and you're going to start changing some stuff. So you're never going to stopped building a project like that. So keep that in mind when you buy tools. Also, keep in mind what they have. Here's some stuff that's just, I just have these extra. They're not extra, right? They're different Milwaukee tools for different projects. This is good for carpentry. This is called an oscillating multi-tool. The blade on this shakes back and forth and oscillates, and you can get different heads, so it's a multi-tool. This is a mechanic type tool. This is a 3/8 impact, right? You've got a really big, since we're working on a box truck over here, I've got a really big 1/2 inch impact, and I've got grinders for doing metal work. So just keep that in mind. What else does that tool brand have that you might need later? Milwaukee has a whole lot of tools, other tools that I don't have, and that's not all the Milwaukee tools that I have. That's just something that's close by that I can show you. Something to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is this costs a lot, but yours don't have to. Right? There's nothing saying that you have to go and get battery operated any of these tools. All of these tools also come in corded versions, which you can get for like $10, $15, maybe $20 at the pawn shop or at a garage sale. I know for a fact I've bought many circular saws, right? I like this size. This is a 6.5 inch circular saw. This is a really good size for what I like, for what I need to do. But they've got different sizes of those. They've got different size impacts. Maybe you need a 12 volt. Maybe you don't need an 18 volt. Maybe you need something lighter. And depending on what you're working on, you got to figure out how much power you need. I am going to mention that with carpentry, there's one thing that I'm leaving out, and that's sanding, because I consider sanding a more advanced thing with the different techniques and different types of sanders that you can use for a typical carpentry project, like something that you're not going to be putting in a showroom, right? This is for you and just your own deal, like just for you. I would stick to here, I'll show you. I've got one right here. This is the type of sander that I would get. If you're just gonna be building your own kind of thing, and that's all you're doing, and you're not trying to win any awards, get you a it's called a random orbital. Random orbital sander has these little sticky pads, and get a package of 180 and get a package of 220. No, 120 and 220. That's all you need. You don't need to go any higher than that for most, I'll say 90% of your woodworking projects. 180, 220. You do the 180 first, and you do the 220 after, if you want to. Sometimes I go straight to 220. Sometimes I only do 180. But it is, for most projects, those 2 grits is all you need. And then we've got finishing, right? My finishing of choice is shellac. I don't know where that is right now, so I apologize. I don't know where shellac is. Oh, there's some right here. Perfect. My garage is super messy, guys. I'm sorry. All right. So we're going to move on to a different section here. These are the consumables, right? So for finishing, I love to use shellac. This is a clear shellac finisher. It's water resistant. I just love this finish. You sand up with 220. You wipe it down with a damp cloth. You use a t-shirt, old t-shirt, right? And then you wipe the shellac on. You wipe it off. It's done. And I think it looks amazing. And the next consumable we're going to go on to is glue. Titebond is the only brand that I use for wood glue. I take that back. I use Gorilla Glue, but that's for when I'm bonding wood to something else. Wood to not wood. But if I'm doing wood to wood, Titebond glue is the consumable, or is the glue that I go to. Now, which Titebond do you want to use? They've got Titebond 1, Titebond 2, and Titebond 3 that I know of. There might be something else that's, a specialty something, but the way I see it, Titebond 1, if it's something that you want to take apart again later, it might come apart a little bit cleaner. Titebond 2 I use on literally everything. That's the only glue that I buy in bulk like this. If I'm buying a bottle of Titebond 1 or a Titebond 3, it's going to be a really small bottle, which I don't even have today. It's going to be like a really, like for that project. But this, I buy a couple gallons at a time for Titebond 2 and just store it. And then Titebond 3 is if something's going to live outside forever. So if I'm building like for my boat that we actually sold a boat to fund the project of building this tiny house, and on that boat we built some runners out of wood that had Titebond 3 because it's going to be outside forever. We didn't have a garage to store it in at the time. Our garage now still isn't big enough to store a boat that size, so it was going to live outside forever, covered in a tarp, but live outside. So Titebond 3, waterproof. Titebond 3 I don't use for everything because it's it'll show through your finish, right? If you use Titebond 3 and then you use a shellac finish, it's going to be a different color than the wood. Now the finish already is going to be a different color, but it's going to really stand out if you do anything other than paint it. Now you can paint your finished projects. There's nothing saying you can't do that. Paint's a really good, easy finisher. And for that, I wouldn't even sand at all. Paint right on top, no sanding. But if you really want it to stand out, sand up to 220 and then do shellac, and it looks amazing and feels amazing to the touch. And the last consumable I'm going to talk about, well, kind of a two-pack. Pencil, which get you a carpenter's pencil if you're doing carpentry work. If you're doing fine, like really fine, precise work, get a mechanical pencil. Those are again amazing. A number 0.9 mechanical pencil, super fine, and it is tough enough to write on wood. But for 80% of the projects, good old flat carpenter's pencil. The next thing, screws. Now I can't tell you how to pick screws. That's going to be depending on your project. Everything that you're doing with that project. There's so many different types of screws out there. But don't get hung up on the name that they call it. Like this is called a cabinet screw. Right? Look at the head shape. So with this screw is primarily designed to hold a cabinet to the wall. So a cabinet is flat. to a flat wall. So if you want a screw head that's going to hold a flat piece to a flat piece, use a cabinet screw. Now these are actually called multi-purpose. I thought these were called deck screws. But either way, a lot of times these are called deck screws. And these have a tapered head. Right? So with the tapered head, like that, you can countersink them and end up with a finished product that is flush to the surface. Right? Just flush to the surface. Or even recess down a little bit, and then you get the opportunity to fill that hole with something, sawdust and glue mix or something else, putty, something like that. Sand and paint, make your screws disappear. But that's a more advanced move. We're not talking about that. We're talking about just sticking wood together, right? So get yourself some screws, get yourself some glue, some finisher of your choice, and a pencil. I think that's all. These drills have a bit that comes out, right? The bit comes out of the drill, which means that this is also a consumable. This is a Phillips bit. This Phillips bit will not work with this screw because this screw is not a Phillips bit. So when you get your screws, make sure you have a bit that will work with it. So this is how the bit goes into the impact, right? That's it. It's in there. Now for the drill, this is how the bit goes in the drill. The same bit can go in the drill. Once it clicks, you have to give it a little bit more. Now it's in there. It's locked. This is a no slot fit. That's a slot fit. But that's okay because this, right? That's that impact. You can actually feel it as you run the drill. Alright. Alright, so that's enough yakking on that. So now we're going to go on to our first project. And for that, I think I'm just going to probably just going to make it L shape. No need in wasting a whole bunch of materials. Let's see here what we can do. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. On my saws, I run Diablo blades. I run those on all of my saws. That's the only blade that I run. Diablo. The price is good enough, the quality is good enough to where I don't really need to worry about what the blade is meant for. If it's a finished blade, then I'm gonna buy it for that finished product, the one project, but I'm never gonna change it. So I'm just gonna run that finished blade until it breaks. And then I'll buy whatever it is I'm working on at that time. Maybe I'm cutting some rough stuff, maybe I'm cutting some aluminum. I don't care. I'm gonna run Diablo finished blade on that until it breaks. And that's another thing with all of these tools. You can use the same tools for aluminum as you can for wood. The same drill, the same bits, the same everything. You just gotta go slower and pre-drill your holes. That's it. Everything else is the same with aluminum and wood. So the only difference is the glue doesn't stick well to aluminum, and you gotta weld if you need to put two pieces of aluminum together, but that's next video. Okay, so we're just going to cut a couple of these pieces. We're going to cut a couple of 45s. And we're just going to stick it all together. That's it. That's all we're going to do. Nothing fancy. So first thing first, I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut this into a square. So what is this here? We've got 7 3/8. 7 3/8. When you pick up your tape measure, pull it open. Right? Look at the tick marks. The one I'm using, it has everything marked out in eighths. So I can look at it pretty easily and see 8th. Any mark in between is a 16th, right? You double the number previous and you add 1. And that's how you get that. Pretty quick and easy. So I need to cut this at 7 3/8 to make a square. We'll out my mark here, or my tape measure. 7 3/8. That's my mark at 7 3/8. Just a little ticky. Right there. You can't see that. Right there, just a little ticky. 7 3/8. Take your speed square, right? Put your pencil on the line. Slide your speed square to the pencil. Put a line. Right? Now you can see that the pencil is lining up at where the speed square is. Then you just trace the speed square. Flip it over. Same thing. Same thing. Now you got a line straight across with your speed square. Now you could either freehand cut that line, or you could use your speed square to cut that line. So now this looks really unsafe, but it's not. What you want to do is you want to hold your speed square, right? Your fingers on the back of the board. Your speed square is you're on top of the speed square. So on that, you've got, how much space is that? You got 4 inches between you and the edge of the speed square when you do it like that. Then you take your saw, right? And when you line that up, you run the edge of the saw on the edge of the speed square. And you line up the blade with the cut. So I need to spin this around. Otherwise you're going to end up with a cut on the wrong side of your line. And then you've got a piece that is the width of your blade too short. So hold it again. My hand is nowhere close to being cut. I'm not going to do this in the air because that is kind of unsafe and weird to balance, but that's how you want to hold it. And that's how you cut a straight line with a skill saw. Or you can just freehand it. Just eyeball the line and cut it like that. But this is why you get a speed square and not any kind of other kind of square. So with my hand under the wood, my hand is under the wood. I'm going to, my hand is like rocking the wood back and forth. I'm holding on to the piece I want to keep. My saw is in my other hand. My fingers are nowhere close to where the blade is going to be. Right? Nowhere close at all to the blade. I'm going to start my cut. Now I'm starting just a little bit because I want to see where that's going to land. And as I'm looking at it, it's about a 1/16 of an inch outside the line. My eyeball was not as calibrated as I thought. I'm just going to move the speed square a 1/16 of an inch. Try again. Now I'm perfectly lined up with my line. Exactly where I want to be. I'm going to finish the cut. And keep in mind what's beyond your blade. Right? You don't want to cut anything that you don't want to cut. Perfectly straight line. I'll just take the same speed square, go on my end of my line. It's perfect. Perfectly square. That's what you need. Just like that. Nice and square. Now let's see. Let's cut this out of 45. Nah. I don't know if I want to do that or not. No, we're not cutting 45s today. Not going to cut any 45s. Now join these pieces together. I messed up somewhere. Alright, so I normally do that. That's why you'll see a lot of pieces of wood in my shop just loose. It's because I read one thing and I mark something different. That's why you measure twice and cut once. I didn't do that. Good thing this is just a representation and not an actual project we're working on here. This goes in the trash as soon as I get done with this video. But I measured 7 3/8. I cut 6 3/8. That is very easy to do. So yeah, keep that in mind. Measure twice, cut once, unless you have a lot of money. I don't, so my project ended up taking twice as long as it should have. But yeah, just make sure you measure twice, cut once. We're gonna roll with it. So on this drill, we've got a bit that also tapers the hole on the end. This bit also tapers the hole. Oh, by the way, I can show you this chuck in action. So this is the drill mode, right? When it's spinning, I cannot stop it. But you can see how quickly that moves. If my face was right here, right? If I'm drilling like this, right? Just drilling a hole, and it slips and I can't stop it, it hits me in the head. Right? Drill, drill, drill. I'm right here next to it. I'm watching where it goes. It hits me in the head. It just spins around, smack. And that has happened lots of times, especially if you're drilling like this. It'll slip out of your hand, come back around, hit you in the chest, hit you in the face. Yeah, keep in mind, don't run this on the drill setting unless you've got either the second grip or you're well out the way and you're ready for it to. If it goes, it goes. But you can see how that will torque your wrist, and it sucks. So just be careful with the drill. But you can go all the way down, and this is level 2. I can stop it. Now it's a lot of torque still, but I can stop it. I can just stop it. And that's how the drill works. We're gonna run on the drill setting. And I like to only re-drill one hole like that because the if you do more than one, and you don't have a clamp or somebody helping you hold it, there's a good chance that it will not line up, and then you, of course, ruin your project. Now I usually have a little smaller container that I put my glue in, but I don't know where that is right now. So we're just going to do it like this. Just going to put a little bit of glue in the cap. Now let's put that somewhere, won't knock it over. And then it showed me where to put the glue because I got that line right here. So don't let any glue go beyond the line. Yeah, just like that. Now for this project, I don't care. Right, we're just gonna do that because I don't want glue on my finger. But if this was a different project, of course I use a paper towel or something else. Maybe my shirt, wipe it off. Might keep my work clean. That's it. You heard a couple of clicks. That was it being impacting into the workpiece. And that's it, it's on there. I'm gonna switch back over to my drill. Put a couple more holes. Now you can see some of these holes. I flushed up really nice. Well, this one flushed up pretty nice. This one I did not drill deep enough, so the screw still sticks out some. Same thing in that one. I didn't drill deep enough. But now, once this glue dries, this is a strong connection, super strong connection. Right? really strong connection, even before the glue dries. But once the glue dries, this is going to be stronger than the wood itself. So I'll try to pull this apart, and the wood itself will break before my glue joint breaks, even with no screws in it. Keep that in mind. We're not going to sand this, but we might finish it. But yeah, keep that in mind when you do this project. Glue is pretty much forever. So glue this. All right, so finishing. I have here sandpaper on a sandpaper holder. I'll put the link down below for this. I just got it on Amazon. I don't remember how much it cost, but it was super cheap. And then this is the same pad that I run on my random orbital. Same pad that I run on my random orbital on this little yellow block. Easy. You just rub it, right? Some people say go with the grain. Some people say don't go with the grain. Most people say go with it. I don't care. A random orbital goes in a random direction. So I'm just going to start rubbing this wood. The grain's running this way, but I don't care. The purpose of sandpaper? The purpose of sandpaper is to make the wood one even height. Grain is a different density than the rest of the wood. So when you're sanding with the grain, you don't end up with a bunch of waves. But if you're sanding this level, it does not matter. This isn't going in a showroom. This is just for you. Make the wood flat. That's all you want to do. Get you a good holder, put the thing on the wood, move your elbow, and just make it flat. And I left it in real time, because that's pretty much the extent that I sand things. That's good enough, right? I'm not just doing that one for the project. If it was a random orbital, I mean, I would have done the whole board, but that's about how much sanding that I do. And that's good enough for me. That's good enough. So now you want to get the sawdust off. And don't use your air gun, because that's just going to put it in the air and it's going to fall right back on your project. Wipe it off with something. Use a cloth or yourself, but wipe it off. Alright, and now for applying the finish, and of course, why would I do that? I put the camera right on my finish, so let's move this. So now, applying the finish, you want to keep the can somewhat clean, right? I got a stick here, and I found on the floor. You want to keep your supply of your finish very clean. And just mix her up. It's mixed enough. And you apply your finish with just a cloth. I've got a shop towel rolled up. Dip it in there. Put it on the material. Put the material on the wood. That's it. Now if you want this to last a very long time, come back and do second coat, maybe a third coat, maybe a fourth coat. But I wouldn't do much more than that. Our cabinets that we built in our tiny house, they have 3 coats on them. On the inside of the cabinets, and we're going to paint the outside. So that's it. That is how to sand and finish and prepare your own project. So now a lot of people say, well, I'm not a carpenter, or I can't make it perfect, or all those things. And those all might be true. But you can stick two pieces of wood together and keep in mind what your project is, right? Is this going in a showroom? Is the picture's going to go on a magazine? Or are you going to try to sell this for hundreds of thousands of dollars? If any of those answers are no, go ahead and start. Buy some tools at the pawn shop. Start making things. Now, I purposely went through and broke every rule of thumb or rule, as you can say, that I said. Those are all just general guidelines. It does not matter. If you can stick two pieces of wood together, you're a woodworker. So keep that in mind. Yeah. If you like this video, click the thumbs up. If you think someone else can use this information, share it with them. If I forgot to mention something like one of these, maybe I did it on purpose, maybe I didn't. But let me know down below if you think I did. And share this video, leave a like, and subscribe for more content like this. I'm going to put out a whole series, probably a week apart. I'm going to try and do a week apart the best I can. It might be closer together. I might get a week and a half, but up here in Alaska, we got a lot of snow, and I work for the local snow removal, so I'm pretty busy right now. But we're going to be, we're going to be putting out a lot more content soon. So, see you later, guys. It's the finished side. You can feel where I didn't sand and where I did. It just feels really nice. It looks kind of shiny. Here's some unfinished material. It looks very, very similar, but the finished stuff is just a little bit shinier and feels better, right? You're not going to get a flint splinter on the finished stuff. On a PS note, just quickly going through the brands how I see them, right? This is my opinion. I would not buy Ryobi. I take that back. I would not buy Rigid. Rigid, I think, is for cordless stuff. I think they're an in-between brand that if you spend a little bit more money and get a Milwaukee, it'll last a whole lot longer and work better for you. And if you don't need to spend that money, just get a Ryobi. But do your research, because if you look at it, Rigid, Ryobi, and Milwaukee are all made by the same person. That's why you see them all at the Home Depot together. They're all made by the same company. Makita is a really good brand for their diversity. They have the largest tool lineup out of all of the brands. They have the most tools. Most of them you probably will never use. Like, they've got a battery operated coffee maker that makes 1 cup of coffee. You're just going to go to the gas station and buy 6 cups of coffee instead of paying $100-something for this coffee maker. You're just not going to use it. They've got a battery operated wheelbarrow, which if you need a power wheelbarrow, you probably won't get a Makita battery one, just because it takes 2 really big batteries to run that. But they are Makita batteries. So if I were to do my whole kit over again, I would get Makita. Right now I have Milwaukee. And actually, let me show you Makita and Milwaukee before we move on. Milwaukee, Kita. The white one is Milwaukee, and the black one in the bag is Makita. Yeah, I'm talking about you. You're named after tools. My cordless tools. Cordless puppies. Come here, puppy. That's Milwaukee. And then there's Makita. Okay, go back inside. Let me finish the video. Inside all the way. Good puppies. So yeah, obviously I have a favorite brand. And then you've got, what was next? DeWalt. I've got a lot of DeWalt corded stuff. Um, I won't buy DeWalt cordless just because I don't think their cordless stuff lasts very long, and that comes from a bad experience in high school. Right, I haven't used any of the modern stuff. I was using some of the old stuff that it really didn't last long at all. Those are the big names: Milwaukee, Makita, Ryobi, DeWalt, Rigid. Huh? Huh?
Did you buy the puppies?
Yeah, I called them.
Okay.
I sent them back. They've got Walmart brands. I don't recommend going with any of those. They have other house brands. It really doesn't make any sense to go with any other house brand. Like, don't go with the Sears brand or an Ace brand tool. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Get something that, if you're going to buy something that has a decent lineup that you can use. They have a Hart. I think Hart is the brand that Lowe's has. I think that's a Lowe's brand. Um, do they have all the tools that you're going to use? Do they have all the tools that you might want to use? Keep that in mind. With Milwaukee, Makita, and Ryobi, they have converters that you can use the batteries from one on the other. So I can buy a Ryobi drill and I can run my Milwaukee battery on the Ryobi drill. Now there's some things in that you want to consider, but do your research on that. Can you do that with that tool brand? What else? What other tool brands are there? There's tons of them. There's tons of them. You might see a lot of people, if you're researching woodworking, using Festool. Don't even look the direction of Festool. Like, all the tools that I had on the table, brand new, would cost about $1,000. With Festool, you're not going to buy a Festool anything for under $1,000 per tool. Just don't do it. It doesn't make any sense. The people that buy Festool tools are the people that are woodworkers and have been woodworkers for their whole life, and this is what they do. This is who they are. That's their identity, is woodworking. That's the type of person that's going to buy a Festool tool. And you don't need to start off with a Festool. I probably won't get a Festool for at least another 10 years. There's one Festool tool that I want, and it's the Domino, but that's it. Everything else doesn't make any sense. What else do we got? What else? Woodworking is dangerous. That's where I'm going to leave this at. Woodworking is dangerous. If you're going to work on something, tell a friend. Tell them to look out for you. You don't want to cut your hand off and then bleed out in your garage. Right? Don't do that. Tell somebody that you're working on something. Tell them how long you're going to work on it, and have them come check on you. If you don't answer the phone, have them come check. You might be in trouble. You might need their help, or you might just need them to hold the other piece while you screw it. So that's another way to get some help. That's something I left off the list too, was a clamp. Clamps are needed if you're working by yourself. If you're not working by yourself, you've got help, you'd probably be alright with no clamps. Yeah, we're gonna leave you guys like that. We'll talk to you guys later.